Hello, welcome back to my channel. So today is gonna be manhwa talk. Manhwa talk where I talk about the manhwa that I just read or am reading right now and talk about how it impacts my life and maybe a little bit of spoilers here and there. So be warned. I am going to talk about this manhwa called A Man's Man, The Real Man. That's an alternate title, or in Korean, it's Sang Namja, I think. Sang means like se, like or Sang Namja. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it's basically the synopsis is it's a regression manhwa, meaning like he died and then he went back in time into his younger version of himself when he was younger. So he it's the setup is in a corporate world where it's basically the it's like a similar to like Samsung and that digital Apple type of situation in the early no in the late 2000s. And this guy, when the manhwa first started, became a CEO. But when he became a CEO, his old colleague basically told him, "Are you happy being a CEO? Like your old colleague died. So like, what is the cost of being a CEO and everything?" And then he died suddenly, and then he woke up in the body of his younger self. And from then on, like that's how like the manhwa started. It's basically him trying to kind of make amends of what had happened in his previous life and do it differently. Like this time around, he is going to do it with people. He's building up team. He's making people like actually benefits from his work. So it's about like other people more now. Like he's being more considerate about how to go about his goals. It's very heavy with technicalities because it's being set up in the mobile technology world. So there's a lot of technical stuff, and it's a very slow burn. Like it's a very, very slow manhwa. But I managed to read until chapter 200, which I just finished a few hours ago. And I feel like even though it's really slow, it doesn't bore me enough for me to drop it, because usually like I can feel like myself feeling bored and there are like still 100 chapters to go, and I would just like, I'm not gonna bother with this, I'm gonna drop it. But it didn't, it just kept me going, which I think means like it's actually pretty interesting to keep going even though the technicality is really boring. Like I don't care if the LCD or the OLED plasma or LCD stuff is, I don't know, 2.5 gigahertz, or the specs is whatever pixel. Like I don't care. So that's like when I'm talking about like specificity or like technicality, like that's what's being discussed, because it's like a parody of Samsung's corporation, what's going on inside it. Like he basically entered, it started again, like he regressed back to the day where he was about to go for an interview for the company, and so he became a rookie again and a maknae. So it started there, and I think what really got me interested and kept going for 200 chapters is, even though the technicality is there, even though the jargons is very thick, I think um, the way he kind of uh, develop the relationships with other characters is the center of the manhwa. And it really, like I think that's the message of the manhwa, is like how you build other people is how you're going to be building yourself as well. And I feel like it's nice to read a manhwa where it's like a revenge drama, but it's not really a revenge drama, because the character doesn't really go into a super hyper sweet person. Like, I feel like he still keeps his old character from the past, but he doesn't keep it like 100%. Like, he definitely changes the things that he needed to change so that he can change like the past, so to speak, and or the future. And I feel like he's not also, what do you say, like he's not being impractical about the way he goes about it. And I feel like the way the author paces the story is very, very slow because it's being set up as if that you are in there, you are part of the team, you are part of this daily uh, drudgery of this character, of showing up to work, of like doing the daily grind. That's basically what it feels like the pace of it really feels like you are in an office and just doing your work. You're trying to show up every day. It feels like that. It feels like it's a daily thing. Like because sometimes you can have you like you don't really feel much of the time as a character in the manhwa. But here I feel like I felt it a lot because like it feels like it hasn't moved. Like it's just yesterday and then the next day and the next day and the next day. It really feels like a daily grind. And but for some reason it works even though it moves at a very tiny minuscule moment to moment timing. Of course like there's a time skip um, here and there, like a year time skip or that kind of thing. I think it, like it also has revenge and like tactical thing, manipulation, like you know he tries to kind of strategize how an event will unfold. And it's more like a wit type of situation where he uses his brain to get what he wants most of the time. But I can't really put my finger of why this particular manhwa works really well because I feel like the target audience is men for this. I don't think that I'm the target audience actually for this particular manhwa, but um I can't say I love and obsess about it, but I feel like it's an important manhwa as an adult to read because it's definitely giving you like corporate prison type of situation where it gives you so much trauma working, and especially if you have a really bad boss and bullies you and like takes a lot of your credit for your work and blames you for all the things that they screwed up, um, and not being really good and competent in what they do. And I think like a lot of office workers can relate to this even if you're not a man. Because it's being set up in Korea, they're not really playing it up to the degree where it's high school type of bullying. It's very psychological bullying, I think, because there is not a lot of physical bullying where you get really hit and like and then there's a lot of SA around, like it's very heavy when it's high school. High school bullying manhwa is very cruel and gruesome, and it's really punch you in the gut type of situation. But this feels very adult bullying, like when you get in the office setting. Like I think in a lot of ways, even though physical bullying, like those high school drama bullying, is extremely damaging, like to your psychology. Of course, like there's a lot of people like unaliving themselves because of that particular type of bullying, which is horrendous. This type of situation where someone destroys someone's career don't really get discussed as much. It's not like the subtlety, but the heaviness of adult corporate world is not really highlighted as much. But the more I read this, the more I felt like, oh yeah, corporate world and corporate work life is very political. Like 80% of your work is going to be managing your other people, managing your managers. And it's quite highlighted here. and the manhwa feels very much like that. It's like is managing people basically, like who can you get on your side. And it's not only like the boss and the colleagues, it's also like people that are support system, like the invisible people, like the cleaners, the drivers, the secretaries, personal assistant. And it really explored that area as well, and I quite like it. I don't know. It's just a very strange manhwa for me per se, because manhwa usually is very either like very extreme. It usually explores the extremity of a particular genre. Like, if school bullying, it goes all the way to the extreme cases, like which exists definitely in, like, especially in Korean culture and in like Chinese culture. When if it's a manhwa with a U, I'm a snob. I'm an otaku lifestyle snob. Anyway, this is the only area where I can feel superior in my otaku lifestyle. Um, so yeah, so I think if you're really into sympathy about your corporate life, I think this is definitely something to read. Is it binge worthy? I don't think so. Even though I binged it, even though I read it in 2 days, like 200 chapters, it doesn't feel as if that I would miss out if I don't read the next chapter. Like sometimes you would feel like you're missing out if you're not going to the next chapter and reading the next chapter straight away if it's available. But it doesn't feel like that with this. It just feels like, yeah, you just finish your day at work and then there will be another day tomorrow. So it's not intense, but it's definitely enjoyable because I feel it's definitely about the process and it's about building relationship with your colleagues. But this is why I say it's strange because it doesn't go in depth as well. It still stays on the surface level. It doesn't go in depth, but it talks a lot about technicalities, about the object at hand, subject at hand, which is like, whatever technical things that they need. Like in this case, is building a phone, a mobile phone, like a smartphone, because this is in the late 2000s when the smartphones are starting to come out. So that's where the timeline is in this particular manhwa. Um, like, so the name of the company that he works for is Hansong. So and then his rival company is Ilsong. So it's like Samsung, I assume. And the rival international one is Apple, but with a PEL, not PLE. So yeah, so it's like that. So it's a situation and that's a storyline. But yeah, that's my take on it, and that's my opinion on it. Not sure if you if you get that, but yeah, if you want to read it, I definitely would recommend it, especially if you have an office job. It's definitely going to help you quite a bit, maybe, especially dealing with people and dealing how, like, they um, go around you or above you, or having incompetent bosses. It definitely gives you a little bit of catharsis, without going overboard and without having it to be overly in a fantasy world. Like there's a lot of grounding elements to it which can be sold as reality, so it does makes you feel as if that this can happen to you tomorrow at your work. Um yeah, but yeah, anyway, I reckon it's pretty good. Maybe it's a 4 out of, no, maybe like 3.8 out of 5, because it's pretty boring if you think about it. But I enjoyed it. It's good enough to keep going to 200 chapters, because usually if it's boring, like even though it's 200 chapters, I would just drop it at like 80 chapters because it's like, oh, I can't handle this anymore. It got me going to the 200th chapter, and if a new chapter comes out, I probably will look forward to it again. I think it's on season 3 now, I think. I go through a lot of manhwa, so I don't really pay attention to what season. It hasn't ended yet, so there is another season coming, I think. But yeah, so that's my take on it. As always, just Google it, like where to read and what to read. Just part of the manhwa club. Anyway, I'll see you later. Thanks for watching. Bye, everyone.